What is going on? Side Perspectives GeoFox here, and running a late night errand run. But the point of this video is to discuss how credit in many ways can be used to further subjugate people who are already poor, low income, lower class, working poor, impoverished. And nowadays, because of inflation and the cost of living, a lot of middle class people are finding themselves in the exact same situations, in the exact same predicaments. So what I'm getting to is, how can credit be used to keep you in the red, in debt, in the hole? Well, think about it. A lot of people are using credit to survive right now because we're not being paid living wages from the get-go. And because we're not being paid well, a lot of us are forced to use our credit cards in between paydays so we can, purchase things and pay for services that we need. Now, granted, there are people out here who, let's just keep it real, are living well above their means and should be making better financial decisions. Let's just keep it real, you know what I mean? And then there's also people who simply, like even this is $64. This same thing a year ago, last year, was like 55, 59. And then, God, in 2019, when we had purchased a red one for my granny, it was like $45, $49. So just within a few years, you can see how inflation is for the same exact thing. But people are using their credit in between paydays to make ends meet. So a person might use their credit card to buy groceries, to pay a utility bill, a car note, car insurance, rent. Okay, an emergency situation pops up and their car goes out. They may use credit for that. And the problem is, credit is not your money, okay? You're borrowing money. And you're not borrowing just what you take out. You also are responsible for paying the interest on that credit card. So if you have a high interest credit card, you're screwing yourself a lot of times when you use it, especially if you're unable to pay it off at the end of each month on the due date. And what typically ends up happening to a lot of us is you make a payment every month because, you don't want your credit score to go into the hole. You don't want to be in debt. So people will make a payment, but they're only making the minimum payment. So, for example, for my credit card, the minimum payment is $39 a month. And you have to realize, okay, you're paying $39 a month as the minimum, but you still have interest. And on my credit card, because I'm with a credit union, my credit card interest is 8.99% APR interest rate. So for every dollar that you use on that credit card, there's an 8.99% interest rate. So you think about it, that's $1.09. Add 9 cents to every dollar that you're using. That adds up over time. So for a lot of people, what ends up happening is they use their credit cards in between payday to purchase goods and services, to pay bills, and so they can get paid again. But it ends up being a vicious cycle because a lot of times, you're constantly having to use, actually I parked over here, so I guess it does make sense to go over here. You're constantly having to use that card, mixed with the fact that we're not being paid living wages. Our salaries and wages do not reflect the cost of living, and it definitely doesn't take inflation into consideration. So you're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul, and you're constantly swiping that credit card because, my God, looking at my own personal experience, I don't even get $1,200 every 2 weeks. I'm like $2 short of $1,200 every 2 weeks. And when you look at the bills and responsibilities, the cost of living, by the time you pay 2 to 3 bills, oftentimes you've already lost a good 30-40%, if not more, of your check. So you're basically forced to use your credit card in between because you're not being paid a living wage. It is what it is. And it's really unfortunate because for a lot of people, that's the only option they have to pay their bills, is to use their credit card. And a lot of folks end up racking up a lot of debt back to back. And when that happens, you're in a situation where now you have a credit card bill that's well over $1,000 on top of your interest rate, and you're still not making a living wage. So whenever you do get paid again, you're gonna pay another group of bills. Once those bills are paid, you're gonna try to put some more money aside to pay off that credit card, or do you need to buy something else now? You know what I mean? So a lot of times, unfortunately, it is a vicious cycle that people go through. And it just causes people to stay in debt. Basically, it just keeps the debt cycle going, and people never really get out of debt because they're constantly having to rob Peter to pay Paul. It is what it is. And something needs to be said about how credit is used and distributed in this country, in this world. But in particularly, I'm speaking as a USA citizen living in the USA. There is something that needs to be said about how credit is used here, and how a lot of times it's just manipulative. Again, it's in my opinion, it is truly a tool to keep people in debt, to keep people impoverished. And that's really how I look at it, because no one's holding these jobs, these employers accountable for paying their employees living wages. I mean, my God, you would think if landlords and property management companies can require that eligible candidates who are going to rent from them have to make 3 times the rent, how come nobody's holding these employers and jobs and corporations accountable for paying their employees 3 times the rent? How come our wages and salaries never go up, yet every time you turn around, common goods and services are steadily increasing and increasing and increasing? But are we seeing more money added to our paychecks? No. Okay. So again, you're going to see a lot of people, unfortunately, who are going to be stuck. Okay. Who unfortunately are going to be stuck in these debt cycles. We're going to constantly accumulate debt because we can't get out of it. And then and I'm going to keep saying it, the way capitalism is structured, everything is about consuming. And basic needs that everyone has, quite frankly, need to be either free or subsidized through our taxes. We shouldn't be paying the amount of money that we're paying for groceries, okay, for shelter and housing, okay, for healthcare, for water, for food. But living in a capitalistic structure, this is what happens. You're forced to pay to live all the time. Yet no one's thinking about, hey, you need to pay people living wages. They always want to talk about financial literacy, but then they never want to give you actual finances. So it's just like, what are we really doing, when we're doing that? It's stupid. You can talk all day about budgeting and savings until you're blue in the face, but in many cases, people are never going to be able to budget themselves out of poverty, bro. Cis, person, folks. The only way to get out of poverty in many cases is for you to earn substantially more money. Okay, there's no saving your way out of poverty, especially when you have today's inflation. Okay, so there really needs to be something said and done about these issues instead of constantly blaming individuals for how this government and how this economic system is structured, because we're not the ones making the laws and the policies to keep people impoverished. We're not the ones determining what the minimum wage is going to be. We're not. So something definitely needs to be said, because people cannot continue to go on like this. We're not going to be able to continue living our lives like this. Anyways, just wanted to, talk about that briefly. Information is in the description box below. Talk to you later.